You have spent 30, maybe 40 years, feeling like you were born into a world that speaks a language you can almost, but never quite, understand. You watch people sprint toward marriages, promotions, and mortgages with the ease of birds flying south. Instinctive, unquestioning, effortless. And you are still standing at the window, watching the migration happen without you. A deep ache in your chest whispering, "Is there a manual for this life that I never received?" What if I told you that feeling of being perpetually behind, perpetually heavy, and perpetually lost is not a malfunction in your wiring? What if it is the only proof that your operating system is far more complex and far more powerful than the ones handed out to the masses? In the next few moments, we are going to dismantle the myth that speed equals success. We are going to look at why your life only begins to generate real power after the age of 50, and why the very slowness you curse today is the only reason you will not break tomorrow. This is not about catching up. This is about realizing you were on an entirely different map. Before we descend into this, let me know in the comments what specific year of your life felt the most like you were wearing someone else's skin. Leave that number below. And while you're there, subscribe and hit the bell. This is the kind of work we do here on Shehzad Hussain. We don't just scratch the surface, we dig until we find the root. Chapter 1. The Architecture of the Late Bloom. Jung wrote something that should be chiseled into the doorway of every therapy office and every lonely apartment. We walk into the afternoon of life wholly unprepared. We assume the path is a straight line. We are lied to by every graduation speech and every movie montage, the narrative of the explosive 20s, the accumulating 30s, the coasting 40s. But for a specific rare breed of human, that trajectory is not just wrong. It is violently unnatural. Imagine the growth cycle of a plant. You have the weeds that sprout overnight, covering the ground in a flash of green. They are the first to be seen, the first to be praised for their speed. And then you have the hardwood tree, the oak or the walnut. For the first 10, 20 years, the weed looks down on the tree and laughs. You're still so small. I've already taken over the field. But the tree is not building up. It is building down. It is sending roots into the dark, cracking through stone, searching for the aquifer that no drought can touch. The weed doesn't know the aquifer exists. The weed only knows the surface rain. If you are watching this, you are not the weed. You are the root system. And that is why the morning of your life has felt like a slow, grinding war against the very soil you were planted in. Let's break down exactly why this friction is not your enemy. Society functions on a solar logic. The morning of life, roughly the first 4 decades, is ruled by the ascent. The sun must climb. This phase demands one thing above all else: adaptation. You must build a container. You need a job title, a social mask, what Jung called the persona, and a set of goals that your neighbor would recognize as progress. This is the season of the resume. For most people, this is a relatively painless transaction. They are handed a mask. It fits well enough. They rarely look in the mirror and wonder who is actually behind the plaster. They climb the ladder because the ladder is there. They are the marathon runners who never question why they are running, only that they are ahead of the pack. But for the deep soul, the one with a thicker, more demanding inner life, this transaction feels like a robbery. You cannot just put on a persona. You are acutely aware of the weight of the mask. You feel the elastic cutting into your skin. You try to follow the crowd's route, but your feet are like lead. You sit in the meeting. You nod at the corporate jargon. You hit the quarterly targets, and a voice inside you is screaming with a volume that makes it impossible to hear the applause. This is not weakness. This is an immune response. Jung would argue that your psyche is protecting you from a premature burial. If you had succeeded too easily at age 25, If you had found a mask that was comfortable and a ladder that felt right, you would have stopped digging. You would have sealed yourself in that persona and thrown away the key. You would have become the successful executive at 45 who wakes up with a panic attack because he doesn't recognize the face in the shaving mirror. The stumbling, the false starts, the career changes, the relationships that didn't fit like broken-in boots. This is the psyche's way of keeping you mobile. It is the thorn in the paw of the lion, preventing it from lying down in a comfortable cage. You are not failing to launch. You are being kept in the harbor because your ship is an ocean liner and the bay is too shallow. You must wait for the tide. There is a profound loneliness in this waiting. You see peers buying homes, starting families, and accumulating the visible markers of a life on track. And you feel the cold draft of the fear of missing out seeping under the door. But consider the nature of a track. A track is a predetermined groove. It is a rut that someone else dug. It is safe precisely because it eliminates choice. For the person who is meant to carve a new path through the wilderness, the track is the most dangerous place to be. It lulls you into a sleepwalk. You need the friction of the untamed ground to stay awake. And awake you have been, painfully, exhaustingly awake. Chapter 2. The friction of the first half. Why is the friction so intense for you? Because you cannot digest empty calories. The standard diet of the first half of life consists of recognition and belonging. We are biologically wired to crave the safety of the herd. But for the rare temperament, the herd smells wrong. You are likely someone who, even as a child, asked the question that drives parents crazy. But why? Not in a rebellious way, but in a genuine, searching way. And when the answer was, because that's just how it's done, a small part of you died. You learned to smile, but the smile had a secret compartment of grief behind it. This creates a specific kind of exhaustion. It's the fatigue of the translator. You spend the first half of your life translating your complex, symphonic inner world into the beeps and boops of a cash register that society can understand. What do you do? Is the anthem of the morning of life. And when your answer is muddled, or when your job is just a place you visit to fund the real exploration of your mind, you are met with a subtle, punishing silence. Jung identified the persona as a necessary compromise, a mask we wear to navigate the social world. But he also warned that it is nothing real. It is a fiction agreed upon by the collective. The tragedy for the deep personality is that they can feel the fiction. They can sense the gap between the role they are playing and the self that is observing the play. And that gap is where anxiety breeds. Let me ask you a question that might land like a stone in your chest. Have you ever been praised for something that felt completely hollow? Have you ever received a promotion, an award, or a compliment, and felt nothing but a strange, gnawing emptiness because you knew with absolute certainty that they were praising the mask, not the face behind it? That emptiness is not depression. It is accuracy. It is your soul's compass pointing toward true north, while the world celebrates your ability to stand perfectly still at magnetic south. If you felt that hollowness, name it in the comments with just one word. Not a story, just the word that comes to mind. Hollow. False. Acting. Just naming it loosens its grip. Another layer to this struggle is the curse of depth perception. While others live on the surface, riding the waves of impulse and immediate gratification, you are already perceiving the undertow. You see the power games beneath the handshake. You hear the desperation beneath the laugh. You sense the transactional nature beneath the declaration of love. This is not paranoia. It is psychological acuity. But it makes small talk feel like drowning in a puddle. It makes office politics feel like a war crime against the spirit. You cannot unsee what you have seen. And when you see the scaffolding behind the set, it becomes nearly impossible to believe in the play. This is why the first half of life is a gauntlet. Not because you lack skill, but because you lack the capacity for willful blindness. And that blindness is a prerequisite for smooth sailing in the morning. You are not broken. You are simply too aware for the shallow end of the pool. You need deeper water. Chapter 3. The inversion of the sun. There is a phenomenon in physics called phase transition. You heat water, and it remains water, hotter, faster, but still water until it hits a specific threshold, 212 degrees. At that precise moment, it stops being water and becomes steam. It changes its entire nature. It can now power an engine, move a piston, create pressure that changes the physical world. The afternoon of life, what Jung called the period of metanoia, a fundamental shift of mind, is a psychological phase transition. It usually arrives unannounced, often between 45 and 55. It does not arrive with trumpets. It arrives as a quiet, undeniable knowledge that you simply cannot carry the mask anymore. Your arms are too tired. Suddenly, the rules of the game invert. The persona becomes the prison. Those who ran fast in the morning find themselves trapped in a corner office that feels like a coffin. Their identity is so fused with the mask that removing it feels like a decapitation. The wanderer becomes the navigator. You, who never had a straight line, suddenly have the map. Because you spent 40 years visiting dead ends and detours, you know exactly where not to go. More importantly, you have developed a tolerance for uncertainty. You are not afraid of the fog, because you learned to navigate by the stars of your own intuition decades ago. The turning point is this. You stop asking, what will make me acceptable to them? And start asking, what will make me recognizable to myself? Metanoia is often mistaken for a midlife crisis, but the cliche of the sports car and the new partner is merely a desperate attempt to reanimate the persona of youth. That is a reaction born of fear of death, fear of irrelevance. For the deep soul, metanoia is not a crisis of desire. It is a crisis of meaning. It is the moment when the unconscious finally has enough leverage to flip the table over. The body begins to speak in symptoms. Sleep becomes restless. The old ambitions taste like ash. You find yourself staring out windows, lost in a reverie that feels more real than the spreadsheet in front of you. Many people panic at this stage. They medicate it, numb it, or drown it in more work. They think they are breaking down. But you are not breaking down. You are breaking through. The shell of the persona is cracking because what is inside has grown too large for the container. This is the moment of the chick breaking the egg. If you help the chick out too early, it dies. It needs the struggle against the shell to build the strength for life outside. Your long, agonizing struggle against the shell of social expectation is exactly what is preparing you for the open air of the second half. And the strange, beautiful truth is this. The thing you feared most, being different, being out of sync, becomes the very thing that saves you. Because you have never been fully embedded in the collective dream, waking up from it is less traumatic. For the person who has slept soundly in the illusion for 40 years, waking up is a violent, disorienting nightmare. For you, it feels like coming home. Chapter 4. Unlocking the basement. You cannot reach your peak after 50 if you are still dragging the anchor of your unacknowledged self. In the first half of life, we are all taught to be nice. We are taught to be compliant. We are told that anger is dangerous, that ambition is greedy, and that self-preservation is selfish. So, we cut those parts off. We lock them in the basement of the unconscious. Jung called this the shadow. You locked away your healthy aggression because you wanted to be loved. You locked away your desire for power because you wanted to be seen as humble. You locked away your hunger because you didn't want to take up too much space at the table. And then, you wonder why you feel like a car trying to win a race, with the emergency brake jammed on. Every bit of energy you spend suppressing the shadow is energy stolen from your future. You cannot be fully present for your own life if you are a prison guard standing watch over your own wild, beautiful instincts. What changes after 50? Exhaustion. You simply run out of the energy required to maintain the pretense. The basement door starts to rattle. The shadow knocks. Let's be specific about what the shadow contains. It is not just dark traits. It is also gold. It contains the parts of you that were too big, too loud, or too much for the people who raised you. Your natural confidence might have been shamed as arrogance, so you hid it. Your creative wildness might have been labeled as irresponsibility, so you tamed it. Your sharp, analytical mind might have been called cold, so you dulled it. These qualities did not disappear. They went underground, and they have been waiting. They have been waiting for you to be strong enough, secure enough, and tired enough of being nice to come and let them out. The midlife crisis for the shallow person looks like a red sports car and a 25-year-old. The midlife crisis for the deep person looks like boundaries. It looks like finally saying no without a 10-minute apology. It looks like claiming your time as sacred. It looks like reclaiming the sword. What you called being difficult in your 20s, you will call discernment in your 50s. And that energy, that raw, unpolished, true energy, is the fuel that allows for a late-stage ascent that makes the early sprinters dizzy. Consider the mechanism of this acceleration. When you stop people-pleasing, you reclaim approximately 30% of your daily cognitive load. That's the energy you used to spend scanning the room for disapproval, editing your words before they left your mouth, and rehearsing conversations in the shower. That energy is now yours. You can direct it toward the book, the business, the art, the relationship that actually matters. If you've ever felt like you're moving through molasses while others skip on pavement, this is why. You are carrying the weight of the unexpressed. When you integrate the shadow, you drop the weight, and the propulsion is exponential. Chapter 5. The Intelligence of the Detour. There is a specific kind of genius that only comes from not specializing. In the morning of life, the world rewards the specialist, the person who knows one thing, does one thing, and climbs one narrow ladder. But the world after 50, the world of complexity and crisis, demands the generalist. It demands the synthesizer. Look at the fragments of your life. The job you quit, the degree you didn't use, the country you traveled to alone, the heartbreak that almost killed you. For years, this looked like a messy drawer full of junk. But in the afternoon light, you see it for what it is, a toolkit for the soul. Because you studied art and tried sales, you understand that a spreadsheet is never just numbers. It's a story of human fear and desire. Because you failed in business once, you know the exact scent of a bad deal a mile away. Because you have been lonely, you can sit with someone else's pain without trying to fix it with a cheap platitude. This is the power of synthesis. In an age of information noise, you can see the pattern. Where others see a random event, you see the archetype. You understand that a man chasing money is often a man chasing the love of a father who never looked up from his own work. You understand that a woman who micromanages is often a woman trying to control a world that once made her feel helpless. This is why you become invaluable after 50. The world doesn't need more young, fast, specialized cogs. The AI can do that. The world needs connectors. It needs people who can sit in a room of warring departments or a family of estranged siblings and see the invisible threads that bind them. You can see the system. And once you see the system, you are no longer a piece on the board. You are the player. Let's dive deeper into this synthetic vision. In the morning of life, we are trained to think in binaries. Right, wrong, win, lose. success, failure. This is the logic of the ladder. But the ladder is an illusion for deep work. The real world operates in systems and paradoxes. A late bloomer with a synthetic mind can hold two opposing truths without short-circuiting. I can be terrified of this new venture, and I can do it anyway. I can be deeply grateful for my past, and I can be furious at how much time I lost. This capacity to hold paradox is the hallmark of wisdom. It is the antidote to the polarization and simplistic thinking that plagues the modern world. Your wandering years were not a waste. They were data collection for the soul. You were building a vast, interconnected neural network of experience. While the specialist was digging a deep, narrow well, you were surveying the entire landscape. You know where the rivers are, where the mountains block the wind, and where the soil is richest. The specialist knows only the inside of their hole. When the terrain shifts, and it always shifts, who is better equipped to lead? The one who knows the map, or the one who knows the hole? Chapter 6. The Armor of Time. Let's talk about the armor that early winners often lack. There is a danger in a smooth ascent. If you have never been punched in the mouth by life, your relationship with the ground is theoretical. You know it's down there, but you've never tasted it. You have. You have fallen so many times that the act of getting up has become a muscle memory stronger than the act of walking. This is resilience. Not the glossy Instagram quote kind. The gritty, quiet, I guess I'm still here kind. Early success creates a specific type of glass jaw. When the inevitable storm hits, the market crashes, the marriage implodes, the health fails. The person who has only ever known sunny skies is psychologically obliterated. They have no reference point for rebuilding. You have a reference point for rebuilding from less than nothing. You have learned the secret that only the fallen know. You do not die from shame. You learned that losing the job doesn't mean losing the self. You learned that being left doesn't mean being worthless. You have been forged in a cold fire. And that makes you incredibly dangerous, in the best possible way, in the second half. There is a specific term in materials science, work hardening. When you bend metal repeatedly, it becomes stronger at the point of stress. But there is a limit. If you bend it too much, it becomes brittle and snaps. The same is true for the human psyche. Your falls have not made you brittle because you processed them. You didn't just suffer, you contemplated the suffering. You didn't just lose, you extracted the lesson. This is the difference between trauma and wisdom. Trauma is pain unexamined. Wisdom is pain integrated. And that integration creates a specific kind of nervous system regulation. You don't panic when the market shifts because you've lived in a van. You don't crumble when you're criticized because you've heard the silence of being completely ignored. You are like bamboo in a hurricane. The oak tree, stiff, proud, and fast-growing, snaps in half. You bend until the storm passes, and then you stand back up. This resilience gives you a superpower, the ability to sit in uncertainty. Most people will burn their future to the ground just to feel a moment of certainty. They will take the wrong job, marry the wrong person, sign the bad deal, just to stop the feeling of floating. You can float. You know how to tread water. And because you can wait, you catch the wave that the impatient never see coming. Think about the last time you were in a period of not knowing. Did you rush to fill the silence? Or did you let the silence teach you something? The late bloomer's greatest ally is patience. Not passive waiting, but active, engaged patience. The kind of patience a farmer has for the seed. You cannot pull the sprout up to make it grow faster. You can only tend the soil and trust the season. After 50, you finally trust the season. Chapter 7. The Economics of the Soul. As you step into this power, there is one more crucial lesson. It is the lesson of energetic sovereignty. For the first 50 years, you likely gave your energy away like a broken vending machine. Someone pushed the button for guilt, and you dispensed 3 hours of your time. Someone pushed obligation, and you dispensed a week of your mental peace. You felt what others felt too deeply. You absorbed the anxiety of the room like a sponge. If you want to reach your peak after 50, this must stop. Not because you are unkind, but because you have a fiduciary duty to your purpose. You cannot build a legacy on an empty tank. Let's be brutally practical. This is not abstract spirituality. This is operational security for the psyche. 1. The battery test. After every interaction, ask, am I charged or drained? Trust the body. It is a lie detector. If someone leaves you feeling confused, heavy, or apologetic for existing, that is a leak. Plug it. You don't need a dramatic confrontation. You just need a quiet, internal note. Limit exposure. 2. The access level system. Not everyone gets the backstage pass to your mind. Your deepest work, the book you're writing, the business you're building, the healing you're doing, it is a seedling. Seedlings need darkness. They do not need to be paraded in front of a committee for approval. Stop explaining yourself to people who only understand the surface. When you explain a vision to someone who cannot see it, they will try to fix it. They will offer you a flashlight for a journey that requires night vision. 3. The no is a complete sentence. You do not need to be the nice person. You need to be the real person. A polite but firm "that doesn't work for me" is the highest form of self-respect. You will lose people when you start doing this. Good. That's the point. The weight of those who only loved you for your convenience will crush your ascent. Let them fall away. They are ballast. 4. Scheduling by energy, not by clock. Most people fill their calendar with obligations and then wonder why they have no energy for their soul's work. Reverse the equation. Block out the time for your deepest focus first. Guard it like a dragon guards gold. That is the non-negotiable appointment with your future self. Everything else, the meetings, the calls, the favors, fits into the cracks left over. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't happen. There is a specific guilt that comes with this protection. Deep souls are wired for compassion, and the world will exploit that compassion until you are a husk. Protecting your energy is not a betrayal of your kindness. It is the preservation of your kindness. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot light the way for others if your own flame has been smothered by 1,000 small, needy winds. Chapter 8. The final integration and conclusion. If you have made it this far, you are not just passing time. You are searching for the latch on the door you've been leaning against for decades. There are 2 ways to live. You can live by the clock, the frantic, mechanical ticking of acquisition, comparison, and decay. Or you can live by the seasons, the slow, organic rhythm of germination, dormancy, and harvest. You were never designed for the clock. You were designed for the seasons. What matters now is not the time you think you lost. That time was not lost. It was composting. It was turning into the dark, rich soil that can finally support the weight of your true life. You could not have been this version of yourself at 30. You didn't have the roots. You didn't have the scars. You didn't have the map of the underworld that you now carry in your bones. Let's address the elephant in the room: regret. You may be thinking, if only I had known this at 25. That thought is a thief. It steals the power of now. The person you were at 25 was exactly the person needed to survive the journey to 55. You needed to make those wrong turns to recognize the right one. You needed to trust the wrong people to value the quiet ones. You needed to be overlooked to develop the muscle of self-validation. Your late blooming is not a consolation prize. It is the main event. The early bloom is the trailer. Your life now is the feature film. From this moment, stop apologizing for the long way around. Stop comparing your chapter 20 to someone else's chapter 2. You are not late. You are precisely on time for a different kind of arrival. Save your energy for what echoes. Protect the space where your voice is forming. And let your life, from this day forward, be the only proof you ever needed. You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to be so deeply rooted that when the wind comes, and it always comes, you are the only thing left standing. The world is noisy. The world is fast. The world is addicted to the surface. And in this cacophony, the world desperately, achingly needs the weight of the deep soul. It needs the person who can sit in the fire and not flinch. It needs the voice that speaks not from the throat, but from the marrow. That voice is yours. It has been fermenting for 5 decades. It is ready. If this shifted something inside you, if it loosened a knot you've been carrying in your chest, write the word season in the comments. Let it be a small, quiet marker for the moment you stopped sprinting towards someone else's finish line and started cultivating